And traders, right, this is about take 4 of this. The previous take but 1 was 45 minutes and I got interrupted and there's nothing I could do about it. Um, so this is take 2, well, take 6, but this is a proper take 2. Hopefully we'll get to fruition. And as it happens, um, it might work out in our favour. The reason the previous video was going on for so long was because I was waiting to show you a live sort of re-entry into gold. And I talked about everything on multiple time frames. It's really in depth, but in my usual style of you needing to put it on twice speed. So let me try and cover what I put in that video. First off, it is now well into the UK Open, and I assumed we would get a punch up following all the rules. Primarily, this is on D1 because it was part of the previous video, obviously. Primarily because we get a trigger here, but what I keep trying to say to you is you cannot just rely on that. You have to rely on all the other 3CR stuff. And forget these, I don't know, they're a hangover from a previous indicator that doesn't seem to. Oh no, it's actually. Oh, this is part of Dean's indicator that I do have hiding behind here that I'm trying to finally learn what it's how it works. Thank you, Dean. If you ever watch any of these videos, I haven't spoken to you for a long while, but all the love in the world from this part of the world to your part of the world, buddy. Thank you so much, and I hope you're doing really well. Anyway, and that's Dean's indicator hiding down there, which I've left on my charts now in order to learn, but I don't want to distract anyone from current stuff. So I don't know quite how it works, so I need to study it to make sure it lines it. Well, I'm sure it's certainly sure it does what Dean says it does on the tin, as it were. And it is not his job to teach us how to use it. It's our job to benefit from these things. Anyway, getting back to this. So these yellow lines were drawn on old H4 levels, which are miles away over there, manually drawn, because if I used Dean's levels, Dean's lines, the other version, you would have lines everywhere here. So, and the other thing I should say is I'm just using this FTMO demo for testing purposes. I trade my live account a lot different. I still use all the stuff here, and I still use if there's a trade that follows the rules that I talk about on Twitter and on YouTube, then obviously those are bonus trades, if you like. But I trade everything. I trade anything that moves, to be honest with you. This is going now, so let's have a look at what's happening. We haven't got the alerts on here, so it's not a valid trade, whereas I took an extra gold trade somewhere in here on the lower time frames. So this isn't right, and we're on the previous video. This is good that we've had to make this sixth take, if you like, because the previous video didn't have all of this in. It was my fault because I'm using another machine, laptop, to trade with, and I realised I don't have the recording software on there, and I will install it to save what's happened today, and I will also eventually get a decent microphone. I get myself set up properly. But this is really interesting now because these are turning. So I won't trade it, and we'll talk about it as it hopefully gives us a valid entry, which is why I decided to persevere after 50 minutes of mess up to see what gives. So let's have a look at M5. See, M5, we've got nothing going on there correctly at the moment. I would want to see, and as I was saying towards the end of the previous extremely informational video, in my opinion. Um, Even though that is going, I'm not panicking about it, and I never panic about these things because when you get a 15-minute close, a 5-minute close, you generally will get a pullback. So look, they've all turned now. The volume's off on this one to stop the noise, but and the candle's just closed, the 5-minute candle. So this is a valid signal to the long side. Now, what I was saying is you quite often get a sneaky little pullback, and this is what's happening. So I would I never panic about these potential trades. And we've got all sorts going on here. We've got 2B. We can show you the line chart on the 2B. That's sellers broken by buyers here. This is sellers broken by buyers here. They may well be coming back, although we've got higher high there. They may well be coming back to test this sort of level here. But as it stands, everything is looking quite good for that continuation long. So let's look at H4 now and talk about those lines. And we need to look at the further left. That's why I didn't use Dean's lines, because we would have had thousands of levels here, because you have to allocate the number of candles and it would have got all these involved and everything. So let's take the scroll off. Sorry, this isn't set up as I would normally have it on my other machine. I'll scroll to the, I normally have it with, actually no, that's not how I sometimes have it. I must have just had it differently. Sorry, I'm rambling again. So if we look over here, you will see H4 open close there, closed that red candle, sorry, the open of the red candle there, and then roughly around here you've got H4 closed and things. This is pennies running on this trade, by the way. Now I added a big old chunk to the demo trade because yeah, I got back purely coincidence after 4 or 5 hours on the beach and breakfast in a cafe and lunch in a cafe on the way back, and gold was looking perfect. Everything was looking perfect. That's why, again, I love the indicators. As I mentioned on X yesterday, I'm so pleased to have a trading method that involves everything looking correct on the charts and has nothing to do with the London Open, the American Open, the Frankfurt Open, we obviously get the momentum there, and if everything looks right, we trade it. But there's no, when all you're waiting for, you're watching TV like I was last night and whatnot. And in the afternoon, I was trading the cryptos, admittedly only demo, but I left cryptos alone for ages and ages, years maybe, because there's only so many, there's only so many pips you need, and one trade a day is the mantra we talk about. But look how that has now dropped straight out of alignment. Again, another good reason to let the retracements happen on the closes of all of those candles. Just chill, relax. We almost always get pullbacks. Again, another reason not to try and trade all of these, what do you want to call it, billionaire times of trades. When the real big boys are trying to get their bonuses and all that lot, there's no need. It's much better to trade your charts and not get stressed out about missing something and all that lot. Just get yourself set up. This is what I tried to tell people yesterday. In my opinion, this has got to be one of the best, most relaxed ways to trade. And when I say I trade with my chart shut, I do. I mean, I like to have them open if I can, but if I'm watching TV, I don't think I'm, no, and I don't watch much TV. I'm watching streaming and stuff, music videos and whatnot, and audio books, and it goes on, doesn't it? Now we are so lucky to have the internet. Anyway, I digress. So we've drawn our H4 levels on the opens and closes, and because they are the battlegrounds, so rather than go for the extremes, the wicks, I just go for the line charts. That's why I love line charts so much. Multi-time frame line charts. That's a whole new story. So that's how I drew those levels. And there's one way up there, I think. Or no, I'm on H4, so that will be the top one, won't it? Yeah, that's the one I was talking about, way up there, away from price, let's put it that way. So we'll take the scroll off again now. So we've drawn our levels above price that will potentially be targets, and then we can go back to the M5 again and watch what's happening. Big candle into resistance. What happens? A little bit of a pullback. You couldn't make this stuff up. And another thing, because I said this in the previous video, there is no substitute for screen time. You can't. You're teaching your brain muscle memory. I mean, I'm very lucky because I've spent my 20 years. I wouldn't want to be at the start of it all again. But at least, unlike where I was, I suppose, there is so much more information now for newer traders. Just find the guys that really, really know what they're talking about. And I'm not talking about myself, although I think I do know what I'm talking about now. I would say I'm probably, well, I've said it before. I'm an expert at entries, but I'm crap at targets in terms of holding trades. I don't need to. I can get 5 trades while one guy sits in one and stresses all day long. So that's what scalpers do, and that's why I gravitated towards scalping all those years ago. And I left a link or a comment about Billy TT and Claudia 1, and there is another guy called Lem, and there's Too Slow, and all sorts of people on there. In fact, dozens of really, really great traders on there. And Claudia and Lem was a prop firm trader. I don't think you could strictly say he's and those we're talking about proper prop firms where you sit in an office with a bunch of traders. But he wasn't a bank trader, if you like. Claudia 1 was ex-Deutsche Bank, and Billy TT, as far as I can remember, never ever said where he worked, but he was in a bank. And one of the most striking comments from him was that he bought a house outright, no mortgage or anything, with one trade. And we're not talking about when houses were £5,000 or £20,000. We're talking about, when a brand new car cost a couple of grand and a big house was 150 grand back then, which would be 2 million, 3 million now. So anyway, times change. This is great. See, because we're aware of potential pullbacks, A, we don't get stressed about just hitting the trigger, and B, we don't get faked into a crappy trade. Look what's happened. It's just told us right from the 1 minute, right from when that 15-minute, 5-minute, whatever it was, closed, that we just wait. We either trade the break of the high, well, not without everything being absolutely correct, of course. So, there are ways to trade it, but because we've got so many valuable, really, really valuable indicators to double check everything. And remember, I always say, look left, make sure you've double checked everything. We've got this sideways area. When it breaks out, everything was correct. The TMA, the not on this 5-minute bust, pullback, break and close. There isn't. That's the bust. And technically speaking, you want to be only considering a really belt and braces fantastic line. Like here, bust, pullback, break and close. That's good. Bust, pullback, break and close. This isn't until you get to that one there. Let's put a vertical on that candle. Sorry. That's the open of the new candle. So that's the confirmation the next candle is the one you would have been trading in, and it just exploded. There was a wick on there, but again, we would be looking at that on the 1 minute. There was probably a 1 minute pullback. I'm not going to look into it now. In fact, I traded that, I think. Yeah, I did. Hadn't. This is the whole reason for this particular video, was to explain how I would get into that in a perfect world. I got into it here, as you can see, and then it exploded. And then how do we get into the new trade? We watch that explosion, that positive candle on a 5 minute, remember this is, and then we watch the pullback as we are around here. But ideally what I'd want to see here is a similar scenario to this, remember, look left, which is a break of that level there, the last level for a good strong candle, momentum candle, to break above. And all this is in alignment, all this is, this is where they keep you out of. These are so good because I love the bing bong and I love how they work. Be interesting, is H4 now losing so much momentum that that's come out of alignment? Let's have a look. You can't put two sets of these on one chart, so you either open two charts in the same terminal and put all 6 time frames across two charts. It takes a second, doesn't it? Not even a second, a microsecond to switch charts, just double check everything. So that was that's how I had my other machine set up yesterday for the cryptos. But let's have a look at what I'm doing. Changing the double Bollinger Band to H4. So when day one is in alignment, it's going to take a big move backwards to go out of alignment. Much the same as the H4 would too, because remember they are Bollingers. Bollinger Bands, should I say. So yeah, H4 is still in alignment, that's brilliant. When that goes out of alignment, you can either just close your charts, you've made your trade and walk away, or like I was doing but not really talking about, was drop down to M30, M5, M1, and H1, M30, M15, and so on and so forth across various charts, and watching what was going on. And obviously there is a big difference. One, we're trading with a much bigger trend, if you like, with an H4 bias on a M5 and 15 trend, and then the lower time frames you use, and you've got to build your muscle memory. You've got to do that screen time. People ask how I use them. I'm trying to explain how I use them here, but I can't hold your hand. I had to chuckle because there was a comment on DM, and I felt like saying, what do you want me to take the damn trade for you? Do the screen time, instead of watching back to back The Walking Dead and all that lot. Watch your charts. Sorry if that sounds arrogant, but even the XICT guys now, with 3 or 4 years under their belt, are actually turning into the ones that have not gone to the dark side, as it were, and selling all that crap. The ones that realise they've got to learn from the charts are saying exactly what my mantra: screen time, screen time, screen time. So, as I said yesterday in a post, these indicators keep us out of bad trades. It's just, I just love them so much. I expected this to burst up with the London Open, 8 a.m, and we got nothing. Nothing. Not even a big 1 minute candle. Even to the point that I thought there might be a bank holiday, or there might be a problem with my British summertime and all that malarkey going on, winter time. But I don't think it was because of that. It was just that they've done all the damage. The big boys have earned their money on the Frankfurt Open, and they'll wait till London now. They'll wait to, well, the other day I mentioned a massive trade that took place at 11 minutes past 10. I think that, if memory serves me correctly when I was messing around with H4s, that is an H4 close. But it don't matter. 2-hour close, as you've seen, a 5-minute close can create, you know, what is potentially a massive looking pullback. Because gold, remember, this is gold. God knows what. I did have a little indicator that told me what the average candles were and so on and so forth. Brilliant. But you can put them on, put them off, and all that lot. And people already say my charts are an absolute mess. But I know how to trade this. Look at this daily open line. Test, pullback, test. There is a fortune to be there. And what else? I mean, it goes on. The pivots tell me a million and one things. Sorry, that's my email pinging around. Everything on this chart is on here for a reason, and there's 100 other things I could put back on and make money out of as well, combined with all this stuff. So we talked about bust pullback rank close. The next big green candle, big green bar here and here, that breaks these previous highs before these pullbacks and closes above them, of course. They will, because I do use that that sort of scenario on here as well. You know, where we talked about this bar here. Notice that bar is higher there. I'm talking about this one. It doesn't. We don't get the digits on this one, I don't think. Or do we? Up to. I've never looked at this, I don't think. In fact, I must have looked at it, and I probably dismissed it. But that's interesting. 129. 129565, is that? I'm actually speechless. Sorry. That is actually higher. It's a higher number. So sadly, these don't snap to the highs of these, and they don't have the value, I don't think. 1316. That can't do. That's actually pips and shit. No, excuse my French. But that is showing a bigger number there. That's lower than that one. 96. Damn, they are. So that was exactly the same as the yeah, it is high. You can see that now with the gap between the yellows, the yellow line and holy cow! I hadn't noticed that. Maybe I hadn't. Maybe I've forgotten it. That actually is confirming that there, the break of this high here. Damn. Sorry, mosquito. Got to get rid of them. Oh my god. Right, what we're looking for? We're waiting for green bing bong. And then we're waiting for a green that breaks the high of that in a perfect world, and a green that breaks and closes above the high of that, which we've just confirmed is a new thing to look for. And everything else must be in alignment. We must match. We must have broken. In the old days, I used to say we need a 3CR up now like this to break that and that. Now I understand more about what support broken or failed to hold as resistance is a very good indicator. So I've dropped that rule because it will keep me out of too many trades. In other words, that negated by that. Don't need to see a blue bar over this side anymore because we understand line charts far more than we did, and this will be a line chart level on M1. I might as well show you what I mean, because it's not as if we have anything important there. That's a line chart level there. We've got an M1 3CR to the long side. I'm talking about that little kink. We call them the kinks. So if we go back to M5, and remember, this is sellers overwhelmed by the buyers with a close above it, and And there are even, I could make up a million more rules about these, and they're not just rules for the sake of stupid rules. They are, um, things that I read on the charts. So we can see where that. Let's put a green. I need a close. I've forgotten what. Oh, let's just do it by hand. I do this stuff in my sleep now, so we could snap to it on. You do the proper thing on it. Look at the close of that candle. Or let's have a look at the open of that good one. 408.70. So we're on that exact level now, and we can look at the line chart on the M1, and we should be on a kink, he says. So we're right up here, actually. We're a lot higher than I thought. 408.70, yeah. So I picked the wrong kink. But this will be a open and close of an M1, obviously. Yeah, this area here. And look, we've been kept out of a possible long for all the rules that I've explained earlier, and we haven't had the bing bong, and we're still waiting for the proper looking setup down here as well, which we know about by looking on the left. Nice long trade. You could wait for the arrows and then double check everything else. Arrow. These are scalper heaven. These are huge moves on gold. Huge move on gold. I scalp all this sort of stuff, but I can't. I can't. It's advanced stuff. Let's put it that way. Sells all sorts of stuff. There's an open close level there. We've closed through it with this candle here. We get the arrow. We watch the pullback. We sell the break of the low, and so on and so forth. So we're not going to get a long trade. It's going to wait until American Open by the looks of it. But as as I keep saying, here's a 3 CR down. What do we get? Pullback. Might only be a few seconds or whatever. And then if we plan to trade the break of a low, with a perfect signal here, 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 and here, and here, and here, and here, everywhere, you can't just hit them, or you will do if you do the screen time and build the muscle memory, like I'm talking about. 2Bs, they're everywhere. And I'm talking about line chart 2Bs. That's the lowest low there. That's the sellers that created that lowest low. They've been overwhelmed by the buyers here, and what happens? Boom, boom, biddy boom. God, I love this stuff. Line chart 2Bs. Okie dokie, well, that's it. I need to do some work. The only reason I made this video is I did so much work yesterday on MT4 and convert to MT5 that I felt I needed a rest, which is why I hit the beach for 6 hours today. Oh, and that sea and that sun and that hot sand is just, everything has a silver lining, doesn't it? You have a nasty relationship breakup and it can change your life for the better. In the past, when I was young, it used to depress the Jesus out of me. Now, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I can find a like-minded lady that likes beach, swimming, trading maybe, and all the other stuff, great food. And I'm probably the most unadventurous traveller in the entire world. Well, in the old days, I used to love travelling. Now, I dread the thought of packing suitcases, but and all that lot. I just can't be bothered. But that's what happens when you get older. I suppose you chill out. But it's just the sea is crystal clear. There's fish jumping around everywhere. There's people, and it's I was only thinking laying on the beach today. I was I remember one of the most memorable marches for me was wading through, and bearing in mind I was in the south of England, living on a farm. I was wading through 3 foot snowdrifts with my little dog, who was only, I don't know, 2 foot tall at the very, not even that, 18 inches tall at the top of her little ears. And I love that dog so much. But we had an Alsatian at the same time, long-haired, what do I call them? German Shepherd dogs. And she was, they used to get on so well, but they were covered, getting on the point of snow in March. They were covered from head to toe in snow. It was hilarious. They loved every minute of it. So did I, actually. But now I live in flip-flops. Well, not flip-flops, but sliders, shorts and vest every single day of the year. And that's how life should be. What's central heating, guys? What's the heating bill? Amazing. Anyway, I've digressed. I'm in my idea of heaven. So, and we've just broken below the buyers that failed to send it up higher, and what happens? Down it goes. And we didn't get a sell signal on here because H4 is out of alignment, but that's when I'm talking about scalping the lower time frames. If we move that to the correct scalping mode, as opposed to that, we can call H4D1 trend trading mode, and then we can call the signals we get from different time frames. I think I'd like a 30. Let's see what 30 does. I've done. Get M30s out, so we'll have to look for M15. So, and that's a learning thing. That's all about learning, because I'm thinking about that before I even change it. Will it be out of alignment? This is not looking good for alignment. And then you could look at the chart, and you could look at the candles, background candles, and M15, 3CR down, pullback, continuation, and would we have got a trigger? I wonder what Dean's line. Let's have a look at Dean's indicator. 4 time frames: 15, 15, 5, and 1. It didn't show alignment, did it? This is historical data. We desperately, when we have this, we can only look at it in the moment. So Dean built this fabulous indicator that maps out historical, and that's why we've got the buy zone, buy zone, buy zone, and all that lot there. No sell signals, sell zones, whatever, because there are none, not even here, which leads me to think that N15 probably never did give a signal, which is how it should work, unless you want to go N5, N5, N1, and I have. Minute. I need a coffee, and then I need to do some me work, not trading, just me work. M15, no trigger for the sell. So we would have had to, I have done this in the past, M5, M5, M1, and then just so that I get a proper trigger on a scalp, even in this long scenario, we could have gone M5, M5, M1. That's interesting. Let's see what Dean's indicator list. DBB, double Bollinger Bands. Got some instructions there, by the way, which me didn't look at properly. So we want see what that does. Yes, all of that makes sense. No M15, so we haven't got 4 levels. I like this. As I said, I need to learn that. This is bouncing off this resistance level at the moment. Remember, it wants to get liquidity at support too, but sometimes the resistance levels will reverse the price, of course. So let's put that back to how it should be. So I'm not going to be learning anything about that in a hurry. I've got other things to do. So 4 time frames. 1, 2, 3. We should really go for. I wonder why I set it like that. Probably put it what I call scalping mode again. So let's do the 4th like that. 30. They all show here. Interesting. I'm not going to talk about that right now because it would just confuse matters. But anyway, guys, I hope there was some value in this. The second video, this one, was nowhere near as valuable as the first one, sadly. But the first one I got interrupted, as I say. So much stuff on here to talk about. In fact, actually, this is interesting as well. We have not tested R3, although we are on above 5-day ADR, but that means nothing really when we've got all the sort of news going on, wars and God knows what else. One thing I don't mention often enough as well is that you need to have at least 3 brokers that you use to be rely on pit perfection with pivots, because they will all calculate their pivots differently based on when they open and close, although I suggest you only ever use but even with brokers that have a 2 hour GMT offset like IC markets, well most should, because that's just the norm, but always be careful and check that. But pivots, you need to be careful because they do vary between brokers, which is why I always check. I have at least 3, or I have exactly 3 demo accounts and real accounts with a number of brokers, but 3 is enough really to double check things. But not much more to say about this. We've shown how we get the levels there, and notice. Oh, actually, yeah, we didn't talk about the tests on those levels. Those levels were drawn literally when I got back from the beach. I think it was about 1:45, something like that. Wanted to know where to target my long trade. Took over here, and that's not one of the levels. They were yellow, weren't they? That was just a candle open and close. Delete that one. And these were the H4 levels, or one of them was at least. And you know, it's a great target area for that. And that was the final target up the top there, and it touched it within a pip or two. You know, I'm not suggesting I'm clever. I mean, if you want to see a clever, really fantastic trader, look at DD, the West Ender, and their gold. I mean, you know, there's people saying, oh, you know, the prop firm lots, they've had a dreadful 3 months, a dreadful quarter, a dreadful February and January, and there's DD banging out thousands and thousands of gold pips for free service, as far as I know and can remember. Huge targets, triple, you know, TP1, 2, 3, everything mapped out for you. So if you're going to use a signal service, use her. But just remember, if you want to make a living long-term trading, you've got to learn to trade and you know, and scalp or whatever, and understand candles and all the supply and demand and that. Admittedly, you can learn it while you're you know, using the signal service, but that's, you know, as I said in the past with EAs, even EAs have their own form of stress as opposed to scalping. Signal receipts, if you like, I can't think of the, using signal services will create their own amounts of stress. A couple of bad trades because you don't know what you're doing like DD does. All of a sudden, anything can make you revenge trade, lose a couple of trades, and blow numerous accounts, even though the signal seller is making bank, because as I mentioned in a previous video, trading is all about the psychology, and anything you can do to alleviate the stress and the mind games, which is what I've done, what I set out to do, because I realised I was, that was my Achilles heel from week 3, I should think. I met a scalper. Not many of you will have heard this, although I've mentioned it hundreds of times. One of the first real deal traders I met was a scalper, and he showed me what he was doing, and I was sold. And I always remember him because he used to talk about his wife, and he said, "I've bought her a new kitchen on yesterday's scalps," or we've got she's got a new car. Way back then, it was one of those little SLK Mercedes, the little baby ones, compressors, 2-seater. Just bought one of those on one trade, and that's what I thought. That's my dream, and that was 18 years ago now. No, more than that, 20 years ago now. So anyway, I digress. Guys, you must teach yourself to trade, and whether it's swing trading, nothing wrong with any of the methods. Just do whatever works for you. But this will work, as I said, it might have been in the previous video. I've perfected my entries for me and the way to make money with that new hashtag I really, really like, which I hope really, because that will change people's lives. Negative reward risk. Positive reward risk is anything above the value of the cost of the trade. 1 risk, 1.1 reward to cover all your costs. Anything below 1.1 or 1 is a negative reward risk. So risk 2 grand to make 1 grand, but do it 12 times a day and win 80%, and you're still making bank, but with very little stress. Very little stress, especially if you're down on the 5-5-1s and taking trades all over the place, because you can't do that without understanding what all this is telling you and all these open and closes are. But when you understand that, you can trade up, down and sideways, as I used to like saying. So anyway, that's it. We are at 43 minutes and 9. So if you divide it by 2 at twice speed, you can get through this video, and a few leaps and jumps, 20 minutes, maybe a bit less. Thanks for listening, watching, and I appreciate all your comments. If you do comment, come on to Twitter, X, whatever, and comment there, because I don't spend much time at all on YouTube. Post the video and then go and do something more exciting instead, as I say. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Happy week, traders. Green pip.